I'm Ava, a 30-year-old financial planner with a life built on discipline and hard work. But my family has a very different kind of life. My sister Chloe is an artist with a big dream and no plan, and my parents are her biggest supporters. For years, I've been the reliable daughter, the one who cleans up the messes. But when they asked me to empty my life savings of $90,000 to fund Chloe's latest pipe dream, something inside me broke. They called me selfish, a monster even. So I walked out and I disappeared without a word. My family thinks I've abandoned them, and maybe I have. But what they don't know is that their desperation has given me a strange kind of power. And now I have to decide what to do with it. And this is the story of how my family's betrayal became my greatest revenge. Let me take you back to where it began. I am still not sure exactly what happened. All I know is that 2 hours ago I was a daughter with a life, and now I am just gone. It all started with a quiet little dinner at my parents' house just outside of Dallas, Texas. I had driven down from my apartment in the city, ready for one of our typical family meals. My sister Chloe was there too. At 26, she still had that youthful glow, a kind of ethereal energy that made my 30-year-old bones feel ancient. She was an artist, a dreamer, a girl who had never once had to think about a budget. I was a financial planner, so you can imagine the tension when she started her presentation. It's called The Social Rhythm. Chloe began, her eyes shining with excitement as she tapped a few buttons on her laptop. She had a little projector set up on the dining room table. She spoke of algorithms and data points of a dating app so revolutionary that it would change the way people connect forever. I sat quietly eating my pot roast and listening to the presentation. My parents, George and Linda, sat on either side of her looking on like she was painting the Sistine Chapel. She finally finished her presentation and looked at me, a challenge in her gaze. "Well, what do you think, Ava?" she asked. "I think it is all very impressive, Chloe," I said, putting my fork down. "But what is your actual business plan? Your revenue model?" My sister rolled her eyes. My mother gave me a warning look from across the table. "Don't be so negative, Ava. This is a brilliant idea." My father nodded along, a satisfied smile on his face. "Your mother and I have already invested $65,000 from our retirement savings. We are going to be so proud of our little girl." My blood ran cold. My parents had given Chloe $65,000 from their retirement savings. That money was their nest egg. They had worked their whole lives for it. I looked at my father, a man who had worked as an engineer for 40 years, and my mother, a retired school teacher. "Dad, Mom, you can't be serious," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Did you even do any research into this? The market for dating apps is already saturated." My father's face darkened. He put his hands on the table and leaned forward. "Ava, your sister's business plan is a little thin, that's true," he said, "but that's where you come in." I stared at him, my mind unable to process what I had just heard. "We need you to invest your savings," he continued. "We need you to put in $90,000. I just sat there, my mouth a little open. $90,000. That was all the money I had saved over the past 8 years. Every late night at the office, every weekend I had spent budgeting. All the little luxuries I had put off, all the nice clothes and vacations and nights out with friends that I had said no to. All of that had gone into my savings account. The account that held the money I was going to use to start my own financial planning company, my own life. "I can't," I said. "I can't do that. I have been saving that money to start my own business." My father's face got even darker, if that was even possible. "Don't be selfish, Ava. Your sister needs this. This is a family matter." He raised his voice loud enough that I felt the neighbors could probably hear him. "You owe this family everything. We raised you, we put a roof over your head. This family has given you everything. And now you're going to turn your back on us." My mother started to cry softly. "Please, Ava, just help your sister. It's a small price to pay." But my eyes were fixed on my sister Chloe. She was just sitting there, a little smirk on her face. Her eyes held a kind of smug satisfaction that made me want to get up and leave. So I did. I pushed my chair back and stood up. I didn't say a word. I didn't argue. I just walked out the door, the sound of my parents' voices screaming after me. My father screamed, "You are going to regret this, Ava." I did not look back. I just got into my car and drove. The air was thick with the smell of my parents' pot roast, and a kind of bitter disappointment that I had never felt before. I got into my car and just started driving. My hands gripped the steering wheel so hard, my knuckles were white. The air felt suffocating even with the windows down. I did not have a plan, but I knew I could not go back. The screaming had stopped, but their words echoed in my ears. "You are going to regret this." My father's voice. It was not a threat, it was a promise. I knew they believed it too. They honestly believed that without them, without their approval, I would be lost. For years I had built my life around what they wanted. I went to the state college they said was practical instead of the out-of-state art school I had dreamed of. I got the job at Summit Financial Solutions because it paid well, not because it fulfilled me. I saved every single penny they had told me to save for my future, a future they now wanted to take from me and give to Chloe. I had followed every rule, every expectation, every single unspoken demand. And for what? So that when I finally had something of my own, they could just ask for it. So they could call me selfish when I said no. I drove for what felt like hours, the city lights of Dallas fading behind me. I did not want to go home to my apartment. I knew that was the first place they would look for me. I needed to get away, truly away from all of it. I had to disappear. That word echoed in my mind. Disappear. It was a scary thought, but also a liberating one. I realized that my whole life I had never truly been free. I had always been tethered to my family, the good daughter, the responsible sister, the one who could be counted on to fix things. I had been their safety net for so long I had forgotten how to fly. My phone started buzzing in my pocket. Once, twice, then again and again. It was my mother. I knew it was her. I imagined the frantic look on her face, the way she would wring her hands and say, "Where is Ava? Why isn't she answering?" I did not answer. I pulled the phone out of my pocket and looked at it. The screen lit up with her name. I imagined her calling my father, telling him I was not answering. I imagined them both getting angrier and angrier. I felt a pang of guilt, but it was quickly replaced by a wave of cold resolve. I had to do this. For me. I turned the phone off and threw it into the glove compartment. The silence was deafening. It felt like I had just cut the last tie that bound me to them. I drove until the sun was a faint memory in the rearview mirror. I stopped at a gas station in the middle of nowhere. I went inside and bought a cup of coffee and a bag of chips. I looked at the snacks. For a fleeting moment, I wanted to buy the cookies I had always wanted as a child, the ones my parents said were too expensive. But I remembered the money I had been saving, and I felt a sense of purpose. I went back to my car, got in, and just started driving again. I had no idea where I was going, but I knew it had to be somewhere they could never find me. A place where I could truly be myself. I drove through the night, the road illuminated only by my headlights and the occasional car driving past. The loneliness of the open road was a strange comfort. It was a new kind of silence. The silence of freedom. I thought about the words my father had said. "You are going to regret this," but I was not feeling regret. For the first time in my life, I was not thinking about anyone else but me. As the sun began to rise over the horizon, painting the sky with colors I had never seen before, I made a decision. I was going to Portland, Oregon. It was a city I had always dreamed of visiting. It was far away, a place where no one knew me. A place where I could start a new life. I would get a job, an apartment, and I would be happy. I would be free. I was done being the good daughter. I was done being the responsible one. I was done. I pulled over to the side of the road, and for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, I laid my head down and went to sleep. When I woke up, the sun was a bright splash of orange and pink on the horizon. The kind of sunrise that felt full of promise. But as I rubbed the sleep from my eyes, my mind drifted back to a different kind of morning, the kind that began the same way every day of my childhood, in our quiet little house outside Dallas. I was the oldest. the responsible one. A role I had been given the moment I was born and had never been able to take off. My parents had rules for me. I had to make my bed every morning. I had to finish all my vegetables at dinner. I had to do all my homework before I was allowed to watch television. My sister Chloe, 3.5 years younger than me, had no such rules. She could leave her bed unmade, her vegetables untouched, her homework half finished. My parents would just smile and say, "Oh, that's just Chloe. She's a free spirit." I remember standing at the kitchen sink, a 12-year-old girl with my hands in dish soap, watching Chloe get to watch cartoons. I would ask my mother why Chloe never had to do chores. My mother, Linda, would barely look up from her crossword puzzle. "You're the oldest, Ava. You have to set an example." That phrase became the soundtrack of my childhood. "Ava, you have to set an example." It was always said with a sigh, as if my very existence was a constant lesson in responsibility. It was not said with pride. It was a fact of life, like the sun rising or the sky being blue. My parents never told me I was their perfect daughter. They just told me I was useful. I was the one they could count on, the one who would get good grades, the one who would get a scholarship, the one who would take care of things. Chloe, on the other hand, was the one they cherished. When Chloe wanted to take a ballet class, my mother and father George signed her up for the most expensive studio in the city. When I asked if I could take guitar lessons, my father told me that it was too expensive. But when Chloe wanted to learn to paint, my parents bought her a brand new easel and all the supplies she could ever want. I remember seeing her little room decorated with all the art supplies and posters from her favorite artists, while my room stayed the same as it had been since I was a little girl. It was not just about the money, though. It was the way my parents looked at her. It was the way they spoke about her. "Oh, Chloe is so talented," my mother would tell our friends. "She has such a good imagination." When I came home with a report card full of A's, they would just nod and say, "Good. We knew you could do it." It was not a compliment. It was a confirmation of a preordained outcome. I was a sure thing. Chloe was their little miracle, their little star. I tried to get their attention, but it was not about my grades. It was about what I could do. I took on a paper route when I was 15 years old. I saved every single penny. My parents never asked what I was saving up for. They just saw it as me being responsible, as me being who I was supposed to be. When I got a job as a hostess at a local restaurant when I was 16, they were not proud. They were just glad I was being responsible. I remember coming home from my shift one night, exhausted, my feet aching from standing all day, and seeing my father in the living room helping Chloe build a scale model of the Eiffel Tower. They were laughing and talking, their heads bent close together, and I felt a pang of jealousy so sharp it took my breath away. That was a moment I would never forget. My entire childhood was a lesson in unrequited love. I loved my parents and I thought they loved me. But their love was conditional. It was conditional on my being responsible, on my setting an example, on my not making a fuss. It was not love for who I was, but love for what I could do for them. I thought that was just the way things were. I thought that was just the way families were. I thought that was just the way I was supposed to be. I had always believed that one day they would see how hard I worked. That one day they would be as proud of me as they were of Chloe. But that day never came. And I was tired of waiting for it. My exhaustion with them finally crystallized into a goal. I was not just going to wait for their love anymore. I was going to earn my freedom. My path was clear to me from a young age. I would go to college, get a good job, and save enough money to be financially independent. That way I would never have to ask them for anything again. I would never have to depend on their conditional love. I chose to go to the State University in Dallas, a respectable school, but not the expensive private one that Chloe later attended. My parents were proud, but not for the reasons I had hoped. "It's so practical of you, Ava," my mother said. They gave me a small allowance, but it was barely enough to cover my textbooks. I worked as a waitress at a diner near campus, pulling 30-hour shifts on top of my full class load. I spent my days and nights studying, my weekends serving up coffee and pancakes. My friends were out going to parties and joining sororities, but I was always working. I graduated with honors and a mountain of student debt. But I had a goal. I was going to pay off every single penny. My parents were so proud of my graduation. They made me a beautiful cake and threw a party. I remember my father giving a toast. He said Ava has always been the smart one, the one we could count on to be successful. We knew you would make us proud, honey. It was not a compliment. It was just a statement of fact. A confirmation of my utility. A confirmation that I had fulfilled my purpose. I got a job at Summit Financial Solutions, a large firm in the city. The work was demanding and the hours were long. I was good at it. I was so good at it. I would stay up late working on my proposals, reviewing spreadsheets, and building my reputation. I completed my MBA in my spare time. I wanted to prove to everyone and to myself that I could succeed on my own. I had no one to help me. I had only my ambition and my discipline. My sister Chloe was a different story. She went to an expensive art school and majored in something I could not even pronounce. My parents paid for everything: tuition, housing, books. They even sent her a monthly allowance for creative supplies. Chloe never had to work a day in her life. She would call me and tell me about her trips to Europe, the art exhibits she would go to, the new art supplies she would buy. She would talk about her dreams of becoming a famous artist and how her art would change the world. And my parents would just nod and smile and send her more money. I, on the other hand, was living on a shoestring budget. My apartment was small, my furniture was secondhand, and I had not bought a single new piece of clothing in years. Every penny I earned went into my savings account. I had a spreadsheet, a detailed one that I would update every single week. I had a goal. I was going to save $90,000 to start my own financial planning company. I would be my own boss. I would be free. I would not have to live under the shadow of my parents' expectations. I would be my own person. I was getting so close. I had been working at Summit Financial Solutions for 7 years. My savings account was almost at my goal. I was so close to my freedom. I would look at the number on my screen, $90,000, and I would feel a sense of pride and accomplishment. It was not just money. It was a monument to my hard work, my discipline, my sacrifice. It was a monument to my worth. That money was my life. It was my blood and sweat. It was every late night, every early morning. It was every time I had said no to a friend's invitation to go out, every time I had cooked at home instead of eating out. It was everything I had ever wanted. It was my freedom. And they had the audacity to just ask for it. The audacity was what hit me the hardest. That after a lifetime of sacrificing for them, they thought my freedom was just something else they could ask for. But the dinner had started out so normally. My father George had called me earlier in the week and told me to come down for a special family dinner. He said it was important. When I arrived, the house was filled with the warm, comforting smell of my mother's pot roast, the kind she had made for every major family event since I was a little girl. The dining room table was set with our best china. Chloe was there too, looking as beautiful as ever in a bohemian dress she had probably picked up on one of her many trips. She had a mischievous glint in her eye, a kind of excited energy that was usually a precursor to some kind of wild idea. We sat down to eat, and my mother Linda smiled at me and said, "It's so good to have the whole family together." It was a phrase she used often, but tonight it felt hollow, like a line from a script she was reading. After we finished eating, Chloe stood up and walked to the end of the dining room table, where a little projector was set up. She looked at me, a strange challenge in her gaze, and said, "I have something to show you." The logo for the Social Rhythm flashed on the wall. Chloe began to talk about the app, about how it used a unique algorithm to match people based on their emotional and creative compatibility. She used all the buzzwords. She talked about disruptive technology, about scaling, about viral marketing. She talked about user acquisition and the potential for a massive return on investment. As she spoke, she moved her hands through the air, painting a picture of an empire she was about to build. My parents watched her, their faces filled with such unbridled adoration. They believed every single word she said. They were completely taken in by her youthful energy and her grandiose promises. But I was a financial planner. I had been working at Summit Financial Solutions for years. My job was to see through the smoke and mirrors, to look past the beautiful pictures and see the numbers behind them. I saw a lot of pretty words and not a single fact. There were no financial projections, no market analysis, no competitor research. There were no numbers, no facts, no data, just a lot of talk and a pretty logo. "Chloe, this all sounds very nice," I said when she finished her presentation. My tone was calm, professional. "But where is the money coming from? What is your revenue stream?" My sister's face fell. She looked at our parents, her eyes pleading for a rescue. My mother gave me a look that said, "Ava, stop. You're ruining this." But I couldn't stop. "Chloe, have you done any research on your target audience?" I asked. "Do you have any idea how much this is going to cost? The development alone could be hundreds of thousands of dollars. And what about user acquisition? Are you going to pay for advertising? How much will that cost?" My father, George, cleared his throat. "We're not going to talk about that right now, Ava. This is about family. This is about supporting your sister's dream." I looked at him surprised. "Dad, I'm trying to help her. This is not a business plan. It's a wish list. She needs to have a plan if she wants to be successful." Chloe laughed, a sharp little sound that made my teeth hurt. "Of course you would say that, Ava. You're a financial planner. All you care about is money." The words stung. I cared about my family. I cared about all of us. "I care about all of us," I said, my voice rising a little. "And if Chloe launches this business without a solid plan, she is going to lose everything. And so are you, Mom and Dad." My father's face got dark. He put his hands on the table and leaned forward. "That's enough, Ava," he said, his voice a low growl. "We did not ask you to come here to criticize your sister. We asked you to come here to help her." My mother added, "Chloe has a good heart, Ava. She is not like you. She doesn't care about money. She cares about people." I looked at them, and for a moment I did not recognize the people who had raised me. Their eyes were cold and full of disappointment. I was not the daughter they wanted. I was not the daughter they had always hoped for. I was just the girl who had a lot of money in her bank account. The girl who could fix all their problems. The girl who was supposed to be the family's personal bank. The air was thick with tension, with all the words left unsaid, with the silent understanding that this was not a family dinner anymore. This was a business meeting, and I was the one who was supposed to pay for all of it. The tension in the room was so thick you could cut it with a knife. The air was filled with disappointment and a sense of entitlement that I could barely stand. I looked at my parents, who were staring at me as if I was a stranger. "I have worked my whole life for this money," I said, my voice shaking a little. "I have a plan for it. I am not just a bank." My mother, Linda, started to cry. It was a soft, manipulative kind of cry that always worked on my father. He looked at me with a kind of pity that made my blood run cold. "Please, Ava, just help your sister," my mother said. "It's a small price to pay. After all, we have always been here for you. We have always supported you." I just stood there staring at them, my mind racing. Supported me. They had not supported me. They had expected me to be a certain way to act, a certain way to do what they wanted. They had not supported me, they had just expected me to be useful. I was their little ATM. My father, George, stood up and put his hands on the table. "Chloe has a dream, Ava," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "We have always supported her dreams. We have always put her first. You are the one who is supposed to be strong. You are the one who is supposed to be there for your family." I looked at him, and for the first time I saw him, not as a father, but as a man who was asking me to give up my life for his own selfish desires. "That's enough," I said, my voice calm. "I have worked my whole life for this money. I have a plan for it. I am not going to give it to Chloe. Not for a foolish dream, not for a pipe dream, not for a project that has no business plan, no market research, no chance of success. It is my money, and I am going to keep it." My father's face got red. He put his hands on the table and leaned in. "Do you want to know what we have done for you?" he yelled. "Do you want to know what we have done for this family? We have sacrificed everything. We even used the money that your grandparents left you." I froze. My grandparents had left me $25,000 when they had passed away. It was supposed to be my college fund, but my parents had told me that they had lost it in a bad investment, that it was all gone. My mother, Linda, put her hand on my father's arm. "George, don't," she said. But he was not listening. "We gave it all to Chloe," he screamed. "We used it to send her to art school. We used it to pay for her supplies. We used it for her study abroad trip. We even used it for her little art exhibit in New York. We gave it all to Chloe. So now it's your turn to pay for your family." I stared at him, my mind unable to process what I had just heard. They had used my college fund, the money that my grandparents had left for me. The money that was supposed to give me a leg up in life. They had given it all to Chloe. I looked at Chloe and I saw a smirk on her face. Her eyes were full of a kind of triumph. She knew. She had always known. She had been a part of this lie. She had been the reason for all of this. For a moment I was so angry I could not breathe. But then all the anger disappeared. It was replaced by a sharp, cold resolve. They had not supported me. They had used me. They had used me my whole life. My grades, my hard work, my discipline, my money. They had used it all to prop up Chloe's life. And now they were asking me to give up my freedom too. I did not say a word. I did not argue. I just looked at them, and I saw them for who they really were. I saw the selfishness, the entitlement, the lack of love. I saw it all. I turned around and walked out the door. The sound of their voices screaming after me faded as I walked away. My father screamed, "You are going to regret this, Ava." But I was not feeling regret. I was not feeling angry. I was not feeling sad. I was just feeling a cold, calm resolve, and a strange sense of freedom that I had never felt before. I arrived in Portland after a journey that felt more like a cleansing than a road trip. The miles between Texas and Oregon were not just miles. They were a physical manifestation of my new life. Every exit I passed, every state line I crossed, every small town I left behind felt like I was shedding a layer of my old self. The girl who had worked her whole life to please her family was gone. The woman who was driving this car was someone new, someone free. I found a little apartment in the Ballard neighborhood. It was a tiny studio with a huge window that looked out onto the city. It had scuffed hardwood floors and a small kitchen that was just big enough for a coffee pot and a toaster. It was nothing like the house I had grown up in or even the sterile modern apartment I had in Dallas. But it was mine. I went to a secondhand store and bought a worn-out couch, a small coffee table, and a bookshelf. I hung a few posters on the walls. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was home. It was not my family's house. It was my house. It was my space. I had been a financial planner for almost 10 years. Finding a job was not as hard as I thought it would be. I went to a few interviews and was offered a job at a small firm called Compass Wealth Advisors. It was a small, friendly place. The people there were nice and they seemed to genuinely care about their clients. There were a lot of women there, and a lot of different people. It was not like Summit Financial Solutions, my old job. It was not a male-dominated environment where I had to constantly prove myself. It was a place where my ideas were valued because they were good ideas, not because I was a woman who was trying to prove a point. I was just good at my job. And that was enough. I worked hard, but not because I had to. I worked hard because I wanted to. I loved my job. I was helping people. My clients were not just numbers on a screen. They were people with real lives and real problems. I helped them plan for their futures, for their children's college educations, for their retirements. I loved my job. I was making good money and I was happy. I spent my weekends exploring the city. I would go to the farmer's market and spend hours just walking around looking at the fresh produce and the flowers. I would go to the art galleries and museums. I would sit in coffee shops and read a book. I was living my life, not just working to save money for it. I was finally doing all the things I had always wanted to do. I was finally happy. I had not spoken to my family since I had left. I had not called them. I had not texted them. I had not checked my old phone. I had not looked at social media. I had just disappeared. I did not know what they were thinking. I did not know if they were angry or sad or worried. But I did not care. For a long time, I had been so worried about them, so concerned about their happiness, that I had forgotten to be concerned about my own. I had been so busy being their responsible daughter that I had forgotten how to be myself. I was not the person who was responsible for everyone else's happiness. I was not the person who was supposed to fix all their problems. I was just Ava, a financial planner from Dallas who had just moved to Portland. I was just me, and for the first time in my life, that was enough. I would sit on my couch looking out my window, and I would feel a sense of peace that I had never felt before. My savings account was still at $90,000. It was all still there. And I was finally free to do whatever I wanted with it. I had been so worried about losing it, but I had not lost anything. I had gained my life. And I knew that no amount of money could ever buy that. I was not going back. Not ever. I was not the kind of person who would just give up on my family. But I was not the kind of person who would let them destroy my life either. The days turned into a slow, quiet rhythm, a kind of peaceful solitude that I had never known. The phone remained in the glove compartment silent, and for the first time in my life I did not want to break that silence. My silence was a choice, a form of self-preservation. For 2 weeks I filled that silence with a new life, a life that was purely mine. I had a new job at a small financial firm called Compass Wealth Advisors. The people there were kind and they seemed to genuinely care about their clients. I was good at my job, and for the first time in my life, that was enough. I explored my new city, Portland, Oregon, a place so different from Dallas. The gray skies, the towering mountains, the constant rain. It was all so new, and it was all so peaceful. I was building a life that was mine, and I did not want to break the silence. But there was a small part of me, a small part of the old Ava, that could not just let go. It was the part of me that was a financial planner, the part that was the responsible daughter. I had to know. I had to know if they were okay. I had to know if Chloe's business had failed. I had to know if they were regretting what they had done. I had to know if they were missing me. The peaceful life I had built was beautiful, but it was also a little too quiet. It felt like a small private island, and I, a castaway, was just a little too curious about the world I had left behind. One night after work, I came home and I went to the glove compartment. I opened it and I took out my old phone. It was cold in my hands. I held it for a moment and I looked at it and I felt a pang of guilt. But I told myself that this was not about them. This was about me. This was about finally getting the closure that I had been looking for. This was about understanding the full picture, the consequences of their actions. I turned the phone on and the screen lit up. I was met with a flood of notifications. A sound I had not heard in 2 weeks. A wave of vibrations in my hand. Text messages, voicemails, missed calls. My heart pounded in my chest as I scrolled through them. The sheer number of notifications was overwhelming. My lock screen was a chaotic collage of read badges and unread messages. I just sat there, my mind racing, trying to process the sheer volume of it all. The first few messages were from my parents. They were angry. They were demanding. "Ava, where are you? Call us back. This is not a joke. Don't do this to us." Then the tone changed. "Ava, please call us. We are so worried." "Where are you?" Then the messages became more frantic. "Ava, your father is sick. Please call us back. We need you. Please." The last message was from my mother. It was just a single word. "Please." I looked at my phone and I saw the number. 69 missed calls. 69 times they had tried to reach me. 69 times they had been met with my silence. The sheer number of calls spoke volumes. They were not just angry. They were desperate. They were panicked. I went to my text messages. There were 22 of them. The first few were from my mother. "Ava, you are being so selfish. Your father is so worried. You are hurting us." Then they became more frantic. "Ava, where are you? The house is going to be foreclosed on. We don't have enough money to save it. We need you." I felt a chill run down my spine. The house. The house they had so proudly told me was an investment. The house they had mortgaged to pay for Chloe's dream. Now it was in danger. The next text was from Chloe. Ava, I was wrong. The social rhythm is a disaster. It is a complete failure. We are going to lose everything. We need you. Please come home. We are so sorry. My mind was racing. I felt a chill run down my spine. The karma was real. It was faster than I ever could have imagined. I had known it would be. I had known that Chloe's business would fail. I had known that my parents had no business plan, but I had not known that it would be so fast. I had not known that they would be in such a deep mess. I had not known that the house was in danger. I had not known that my father was sick. I just sat there, my mind racing. I was not angry. I was not sad. I was not happy. I was just numb. I looked at the phone and I felt a sense of power that I had never felt before. I was the only one who could save them, and I was the only one who could not. I was a ghost from their past, a ghost who was now in control of their future. The power was intoxicating, but it was also a burden, a heavy burden. What was I supposed to do with all of this? Was I supposed to go back? Was I supposed to fix it? Was I supposed to let them suffer? I did not know. I just sat there, my mind racing. And for the first time in my life, I did not know what to do. I did not know what to do. The phone, a portal to the life I had so desperately fled, lay heavy in my hand. For a full day I carried it with me, a constant reminder of the chaos I had left behind. My peaceful apartment, once a sanctuary, now felt like a gilded cage. I was no longer a castaway on a quiet island. I was a ghost, a witness to a disaster I had the power to prevent, but a part of me did not want to. A part of me, the part that had been so hurt, wanted them to feel the full weight of their consequences. My mind was in turmoil. Should I go back and fix it? Should I let them suffer for what they had done? I was a financial planner. I was trained to solve problems. But this was not just a problem. It was a family. It was my family. I knew I needed an objective perspective, someone who could see this for what it was, a financial problem, not a family drama. I thought of Sarah Jones, my best friend from college. She had always been my rock. A brilliant financial lawyer, she had a mind as sharp as a tack and a heart as big as Texas. I had not spoken to her in months. I was too ashamed. But I knew she was the only one I could talk to. I took a deep breath and sent her a short text. Hey Sarah, it's Ava. Are you free to talk? I felt a surge of adrenaline. It was the first time I had initiated contact with anyone from my old life. I waited for a response, but it never came. I felt a pang of disappointment, but then I remembered. It was a Friday night in Seattle, her city. She was probably out with her friends living a normal life. I put my phone down and tried to go to sleep, but I could not. The ghost of my family haunted me. The next morning I woke up to a text message from Sarah. Ava, I am so glad to hear from you. Where have you been? Are you okay? Call me when you get a chance. Her words were like a balm to my soul. I called her immediately. Ava, I am so glad to hear from you. I have been so worried. Where have you been? Why did you disappear? She asked. I took a deep breath. Sarah, I'm in Portland. I'm okay. But I need to talk to you. I have a problem. I told her everything, from the special family dinner to my parents' demand for my savings. I told her about the revelation, about my grandparents' money, about my sudden departure, about Chloe's failed business, and about my parents mortgaging the house. I told her about the 69 missed calls and the desperate text messages. Sarah was silent for a long time. I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line. Ava, I am so sorry, she said, her voice filled with a kind of quiet rage. I can't believe they did that to you. I can't believe they were so selfish. But you were right. You were right to leave. I just don't know what to do, Sarah, I said, my voice shaking a little. I am so lost. I don't know if I should go back. I don't know if I should help them. I just don't know. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Ava, you don't have to decide anything right now, she said. Just take a deep breath. I can help you. I can look into their financial situation for you. I can find out what is going on. We can get all the information we need. And then you can decide what to do. You don't have to do this alone. You have me. You have me and you have all your training and your experience. You are not a helpless little girl, Ava. You are a strong, smart, independent woman. You can do this. You can get through this. You just need to have a plan. Her words were a comfort. She was right. I was a financial planner. I was not helpless. I could get all the information I needed. I could find out what was going on. I could make a plan. I could get through this. So for the next few days, I worked with Sarah. I gave her all the information she needed. She used her resources as a financial lawyer to discreetly investigate my family's financial situation. She looked at the public records for their home. She looked at the business records for Chloe's company. She found out everything. She called me a few days later. Ava, I have all the information you need, she said. The house is indeed in danger of foreclosure. They have a mortgage of about $450,000, but they have taken out an additional home equity loan for $135,000. They have not been making the payments on it, and they are in a deep mess. As for Chloe's company, it's a disaster. It is a complete failure. She took out a loan for $50,000 and spent it all on a fancy office and a fancy website. She did not have a single client. She did not have a single investor. It was all a complete lie. She has no money left. She has no way of paying back the loan. And your parents' retirement fund is gone. It is all gone. I just sat there, my mind racing. I had known all of this, but hearing it from Sarah, hearing it from a professional, made it real. The karma was real. It was a bitter pill to swallow. I felt a pang of guilt. I was not happy about their misfortune. But I was not sad either. I was just numb. I was just a ghost. A ghost from their past who was now in control of their future. I was the one who held the cards, and for the first time in my life I knew what to do. I had a plan that would save my family, but would also ensure that they would never take advantage of me again. My plan was simple, and it was rooted in the same principles that had guided my career. It was not about emotion. It was about logistics. It was about creating a new foundation for our family, one that was built on respect and boundaries, not on silent expectations and old resentments. I sat at my desk at Compass Wealth Advisors. My laptop was open. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I took a deep breath. I was not just sending an email. I was sending a declaration of independence. The email was short and to the point. It was addressed to my mother and father with Chloe CC'd. Hello, Mom, Dad, and Chloe. I hope this email finds you well. I am writing to you today to discuss the current financial situation of our family. I am aware of the financial difficulties you are facing, and I am willing to help you. However, my help comes with conditions. I have arranged for an independent financial consultant, Mark Davis, to join us on a video call. This meeting will take place tomorrow at 12:30 in the afternoon Central Time. I expect all of you to be present. During this meeting, we will discuss the financial situation of the family, and we will discuss the conditions of my help. The conditions of my help are as follows. First, you will all attend family therapy sessions with a licensed professional. You will be held accountable for attending these sessions. Second, Chloe will find a full-time job and she will begin to pay off the debts that she has incurred. Third, you will respect my boundaries and my decisions. You will not ask me for money without a good reason, and you will not try to guilt-trip me into doing what you want. I know this is a difficult time for all of you, but I am not going to be your ATM. I am not going to be your personal bank. I am not going to be the person who you can just take advantage of. This is my offer. Take it or leave it. I did not sign the email with a loving word. I did not say love Ava. I just signed it with my name, Ava. I read it over one more time. It was cold. It was detached. It was perfect. I hit send. I closed my laptop. I did not feel a sense of triumph. I did not feel a sense of relief. I just felt a sense of purpose. I had a plan. and I was going to follow it. The next day I sat in front of my laptop. My video call was scheduled for 12:30 in the afternoon Central Time. I had not heard a word from them, not a text message, not a phone call, nothing. I was not surprised. My email was a slap in the face. It was a declaration of war. I was not the little girl they had always taken advantage of. I was a woman now, a woman with a plan. At 12:30 the screen lit up. I saw my parents' faces. They looked older. They looked tired. They looked defeated. My father's face was etched with a kind of worry that I had never seen before. My mother looked like she had not slept in days. Chloe was sitting next to them. She looked pale. She looked scared. She did not look at me. She just stared at her hands. "Hello, everyone," I said, my voice calm and professional. "Thank you for joining me." My father's face contorted with anger. "What is the meaning of this, Ava?" he yelled. "What is this? An interrogation? What kind of daughter does this to her family?" I looked at him, and for a moment I felt a pang of guilt. But then I remembered the 69 missed calls. I remembered the desperate text messages. I remembered the years of silent sacrifice. And the guilt disappeared. "This is not an interrogation, Dad," I said. "This is a business meeting. This is a chance for us to fix this. But you have to agree to my terms." My mother Linda started to cry. "Ava, please," she said. "We are so sorry. We were so wrong. Just please help us. We are losing everything." My father George just looked at me, a mixture of anger and shame on his face. "We have no choice," he said. "We have to agree to her terms. We have to do what she says. We are going to lose everything." I looked at them. They had not apologized. Not really. They had just admitted that they had no choice. They were not asking for forgiveness. They were just begging for help. "We have to do this, Ava," my father said. "We have to save the house. We have to save our family." I looked at him and I felt a pang of pity. I knew he was scared. I knew he was ashamed. But I also knew that this was the only way. I had a plan that would save my family, but would also ensure that they would never take advantage of me again. And I was going to follow it. I was going to follow it no matter what. The very next day, the video conference began. Mark Davis, the independent financial consultant I had hired, was a kind and gentle man in his late 50s. He was professional and detached, which was exactly what I needed. For the first half hour, he laid out their financial situation in no uncertain terms. He spoke of the looming foreclosure, the missed loan payments, the complete lack of a viable business plan for Chloe's venture, and the disappearance of my parents' retirement fund. My parents and Chloe just sat there listening, their faces a mix of shame and anger. When Mark finished, I looked at them, my heart a hollow space in my chest. "Now that you have all the facts," I said, my voice as steady as I could make it, "we can talk about the conditions." My father George was the first to speak. "Conditions?" he scoffed, a trace of his old bluster returning. "We are a family, Ava, not a business." My mother Linda just looked at me with sad eyes, but I did not budge. "We are going to be a family again, Mom," I said, "but we are going to do it on new terms, and those terms include therapy." Chloe, who had been silent up until this point, spoke up. "Therapy? Are you kidding me? You think we are all crazy? This is all your fault, Ava? If you had just given us the money, none of this would be happening." I looked at her, and for a moment I saw a flash of the little girl who had always been able to get her way. But I also saw the desperation in her eyes. "This is not about money, Chloe," I said. "This is about accountability. This is about taking responsibility for your actions. I am not going to be the person who you can just blame for all your problems, and you are not going to be the person who gets to run away from them. You are going to therapy, all of you, and you are going to get a job." My father sighed. "Ava, therapy is so expensive. We can't afford it." I looked at him and I felt a wave of cold resolve wash over me. "Don't worry, Dad," I said. "I have already paid for the first 6 sessions, and after that you are on your own. You will have to pay for it yourselves. You will have to get a job, Chloe, and you will have to pay for it." My father just sat there defeated. "We have no choice," he said. We have to do what she says. We are going to lose everything. So it began. The first therapy session was a disaster. My mother cried. My father was defensive, and Chloe just sat there, her arms crossed, and glared at me. I don't need this, she said. I am not the one who ran away. The therapist, a kind woman named Dr. Evelyn Carter, looked at her calmly. Chloe, it's not about running away, she said. It's about taking responsibility for your actions, and it's about learning to communicate with your family in a healthy way. But Chloe was not listening. She just kept blaming me. She said that I was the reason they were in this mess. She said that I was a cold and calculating person. She said that I was a monster. I just sat there listening to her. For a moment, I wanted to yell back at her. I wanted to tell her that I had worked my whole life for the money she was so desperate for. I wanted to tell her that I had been a victim of their selfishness my entire life. But I did not say a word. I just sat there and I let her talk. And then I let the therapist talk. And then I let my parents talk. I just sat there, a ghost in my own family, watching them all try to figure out how to be a family again. It was a long and painful process. The sessions were filled with sobs and shouting and blame. But I held firm. I did not give in. I did not apologize. I just kept reminding them that this was what they had to do if they wanted my help. After the third session, my father called me. He was not angry. He just sounded tired. Ava, this is so hard, he said. I am not sure we can do this. I just listened. Dad, you have to do this, I said. You have no choice. You are going to lose everything. He was silent for a long time. I know, he said. I am so tired. I felt a pang of pity for him, but I did not let it show. I know, Dad, I said. But you have to do this. For me. And for yourselves. And then a small change. Chloe, who had been refusing to even look at job listings, finally got a job at a local coffee shop. It was not a glamorous job, but it was a start. She was not happy about it. She would complain to my mother every day. She would tell her that she was too good for this job. But she did it. And then she started to take an online course in digital marketing. It was a small change, but it was a change. And I was so proud of her. The process was slow, but it was happening. I sent them the money to stop the foreclosure on their house. It was a loan, not a gift. I had my lawyer Sarah draft a loan agreement. It was all legal and binding. A business transaction, not a gift. It was a way for me to help them, but it was also a way for me to protect myself. It was a way for me to show them that I was not a person to be taken advantage of anymore. The journey was a long one, but for the first time in my life, I could see the light at the end of the tunnel. It was a small light, but it was there. And I was going to follow it. The light at the end of the tunnel was not a blinding flash, but a slow, steady glow that revealed a new path. It was a path built on communication and respect, not on silent expectations and old resentments. The family therapy sessions were not easy. They were filled with tears and arguments and painful truths. But we were talking. For the first time in our lives, we were having honest conversations. We were not just speaking. We were listening. We were hearing each other. We were learning to understand each other. My mother, Linda, admitted that she had always put Chloe first because she was afraid of losing her. She was afraid that Chloe, the free spirit, would leave her. She had been so afraid of losing her that she had lost me. My father, George, admitted that he had always put all the pressure on me because he was afraid that I would fail. He was so afraid that I would fail that he never even gave me a chance to succeed on my own terms. He had always seen me as a tool, not a person. He had always seen me as a responsibility, not a daughter. And Chloe, the little girl who had always been able to get her way, admitted that she was so used to getting everything she wanted that she never learned how to work for it. She was so used to being the center of attention that she never learned how to share it. She was so used to being the favorite that she never learned how to be a sister. I sat there listening to them, and I felt a sense of peace that I had never felt before. I was not angry. I was not sad. I was not happy. I was just at peace. I was a person who was not defined by my family's expectations. I was a person who was defined by my own choices. I had chosen to leave, and I had chosen to come back. And in doing so, I had not only saved myself, but I had saved my family. The financial recovery was a long process. The loan I had given them was legally binding. It was a business transaction, not a gift. They had to pay it back. They had to make the payments on their house. They had to pay for their therapy. They had to learn how to be responsible. And they did. It was not easy. They had to sell a few things. They had to cut back on their spending. But they did it. And Chloe, the girl who had always been able to get her way, finally got a job. She was a waitress at a local restaurant. It was not a glamorous job, but she did it, and she was proud of it. She started to pay off her own debts. She started to learn how to be a responsible person. Our relationship was not perfect. It was a work in progress. But it was better. It was real. We were a family again. But we were a different kind of family. We were a family that was built on honesty and respect. We were a family that was built on communication and boundaries. We were a family that was not going to fall apart. We were a family that was going to work together. The journey was a long one, but for the first time in my life, I was genuinely hopeful about my family's future. Not because I had sacrificed myself to maintain harmony, but because I had finally valued myself enough to demand change. Sometimes, walking away is the only path to being truly seen. And sometimes, the most selfless thing you can do for those you love is to finally and belatedly love yourself first. Have you ever had to walk away from a relationship to gain perspective? What boundaries have you set that changed everything? Share your experience in the comments below. And do not forget to subscribe if this story resonated with you. Thank you for listening to my journey from obligation to empowerment. Remember, you deserve to be valued for who you are, not just what you can provide for others.